Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Happy Tuesday. Um, you know, I was, so we're live on multiple platforms here now. Yes, Dr. Maisha here with the Mind ReMapping Academy, master practitioner and trainer of neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis. For those of you who don't know me, most of you already do. Um, So today, I was thinking about this because I've been encountering this for some time off and on, and that is experiencing when people are hold you, and when we hold people, because there's always two sides of the coin, right? When people hold you to an old mental model, meaning when uh, people only see you for who you used to be, especially when you've done some growth and development and things have changed. So it's interesting because um, we're wired to interact with people in our lives from the past. We're wired to interact with certain groups of people from our experiences of the past. And while, because our brain is a machine programmed to learn from mistakes, learn from past experiences, and that actually is useful in a lot of cases, right? It's like there's this memory bank that helps us to be able to learn for the future. However, sometimes when that learning bank gets old and outdated, just like textbooks get outdated and programs get outdated, um, and we're still running these old programs, it actually can be harmful for relationships with people who we've known for a long time. So I'll give you an example of this. Um, particularly with family, this happens a lot. And I had this conversation a while back, and this happened a while ago, but I had this conversation um, with my mom, and my mom is my mom. She's known me since I was, out of her belly, and she knew me to have certain characteristics, and she used to say that I was, shy and reserved, and I would not in a million years characterize myself now as shy, nor reserved. But that is the mental model for which she held me for a very long time. And, truth be told, I probably was quiet growing up. And I can be quiet even today when I get in certain spaces or when I'm needing to recharge. That's the nature of being an introvert. And by the way, there's going to be some time when I actually go a little bit more in depth um, with introversion and extroversion and certain aspects of the Myers Briggs profiles, because I think it's really cool and useful to understand our tendencies and our personalities. These profiles are in no way meant to box us in and to is us or are us, right? But to give us sort of like tendencies, just like astrological signs. Quite frankly, for those of you who believe in astrological signs, they're there to give us tendencies of our personalities, not to box us into we are one way or another. You know how I feel about binary thinking, and so, I remember having this conversation with my mom, and I can be quite comical. I can actually be funny at times and silly. And we were sitting at a table, and I think we were joking around, and um, she was like, "Man, I can't." But she was just like, I had her like cracking up, just like laughing. I was, just being silly, telling jokes. And she said, "Man, you know what? I don't know who this new you is. I mean, you were always so conservative, so reserved, and so shy." And I, shared with my mom, I was like, "I think that that's how you've always seen me. Like that's the model that you've held of me, but I have never been reserved or shy. But because you have held this sort of model of me, that's how you've always seen me. And even when I am my whole self, my true self, my full self in adulthood, it's surprising to you." And what's interesting about that is that that conversation was one of the first conversations, but not the last conversation, where she shared that, oh, you've always been so conservative. You've always been so conservative, and sometimes she used the word plain Jane, and shy. And over the years, she would keep saying that, when we had already had this conversation called, no, this is the way you saw me. This is the way I am now. And so that's an example of when someone who has determined or has a potential a picture of who you are in their mind, an old mental model of who you are in their mind, and they are not upgrading that model, even though you are displaying and sharing um, characteristics and parts of you that are outside that model, and even having conversations to let people know who you are. And when we do that, it can be it could limit the closeness, the ability to really form those intimate connections, because we're so busy holding an old model that we can't see the growth and even the different bids for connection in the person that's grown before us. Right, we can't see the needs of that person that has grown before us. Or if you're the subject of that, it can feel very lonely. It can feel very frustrating when people keep putting you into this old box, and seeing you for the person you used to be, right? This is something that is very common in people who have known you for long periods of time, whether it be family or coworkers or old friends that you've been with, coworkers that you've worked with for a long time, managers that you've worked underneath, or employees that you've worked over. When you begin to grow and expand and adopt new ways of being, and adopt new mental models and new models for yourself, people will sometimes still see you as who you used to be. People will sometimes, they will oftentimes actually not upgrade their mental models. Now, that's not necessarily it's not necessarily our responsibility to force an upgrade in another, but there are ways that we can begin to assist others in upgrading their mental model of us. And the first way is just straight conversation and calling out. I'm all for naming things, calling out what it is that you're experiencing, right? I know that you think I am this way. And perhaps in the past, acknowledging I may have exhibited this characteristic, or I may have seemed this way. Maybe because I didn't express like I expressed. Like for my mom, maybe I used to be more quiet, and I didn't have my fullest expression in front of her like I had in front of my friends. So there was like an incongruency in how I was with her and how I was with my friends. But when I got comfortable in my own skin, and I got confident enough to that my mom was that safe space that I could be fully expressed and I could be fully with her, then she saw parts of me that she never used to see, right? So naming that, if there's a person that you're seeing, or that you're experiencing, continues, even though you've grown, you developed, you've shifted, you've changed, you've transformed, and they continue to see this old model of you, they're holding that old mental model of you, you can have a conversation with them. If you feel like the relationship is worth doing that, right? So you have to determine that for yourself. Are you still aligned in the values, and there's still an old mental model? Are the values so divided, or they're so far apart that maybe it's not even worth having that conversation, but maybe moving on and completing that particular relationship? You got to make that choice for yourself. And if it is such that you're like, you know what, I really want to continue to be in relationship with this person. However, in order for that to work, um, their mental model of me has to be upgraded. Then that's a conversation you have with them. Yes, I um, am no longer this person that I used to be. And I can understand how you might have seen me as this person, because perhaps I didn't express myself with you in this way. However, what you need to know is this is who I am now, and this is how I would like for you to relate to me, right? That's a conversation you can have, and you can have it in the way that in your own voice, but that's a kind of conversation that you have with a person. Now, you may need to remind that person because guess what? The unconscious mind needs repetition. Just like in learning, we need repetition in order to catch on. So that means they need consistency of behavior, consistency of expression, consistency, and sometimes repetition of that conversation once or twice in order to be like, aha, right? And let's keep in mind that not only are we dealing with other people's mental models, we're of us, we're dealing with other people's model of the world, and while we're not responsible for other people's trauma, their own experiences, past experiences of trauma. So their lack of ability to maybe trust that something has shifted when it has can play into that as well. So your consistency in new behavior, new action, new communication over time will retrain their brains to interact with you in a new way, right? And this also goes with when you're setting boundaries, right? When you're embarking upon new things, new ideas with your career, you're being adventurous with your career, maybe starting a new business, who you are, your purpose, stepping into your purpose that may shift things, and people will see you differently. I know when I shifted careers from clinical medicine, it took a long time before people realized and understood that I was no longer practicing as a clinical physician anymore. While I'll always be a doctor, I'll always have the MD behind my name, I'll always have that training, those credentials, and that knowledge. That's not what I practice anymore. And so people interacted with me for a very long time still as a clinical physician, whereas I was way beyond that. I was doing the coaching, the burnout coaching and the neuro linguistic programming and the mind remapping. And I was doing all of those things, the career transition with medical professionals. But people interacted with me for a very long time as I was a clinical physician. And now that I've established myself and the consistency of my behavior and the building of my businesses and brands and all of that, people can now interact with me as who I am. Similar with my mom. Now, me and my mom, we have a whole different relationship. Now that she knows that I have a particular expression, she can be a particular way with me, and we have lots of fun together. We have very deep, intimate conversations, spiritual conversations, and but I had to remind her and continue to be consistent in my behavior over time that I am no longer that version, that mental model that she held in her mind for me. So these are some things, some ways as people are holding these mental models. It can be super frustrating. It can be very frustrating when that's happening. And we have to have not only consistency in our behavior and our communication, but also, oh, thank you so much, Dr. Reem, and but also we need to have compassion and patience for maybe some of the things that they dealt with that where they're having to um, overcome their barriers or obstacles of mistrust and people and their ability to change and grow and thrive. There are some people who will just hold old mental models of you because they want you to be in the same place. It's unfortunate, and it really has to do more with their insecurity of where they are, and so they would want to, and their fear of being left behind than um, than their lack of ability to upgrade. So when people refuse to upgrade, then you have a choice to make. You have a choice to make. Do you continue? How do you continue to be in that relationship? How do you modify your interactions such that um, you can take care of your own self, right? Your own heart space, your own mental peace of mind, being in relationship with that person. Similarly, it's important to also find communities that see you for who you are presently, so that when you have people who are still holding you to old mental models, you also have the balance of people who are holding you to new mental, to the person you are now and the person that you say that you want to be. Meaning, we're all, if you're in this game of personal growth and development, if you're in this game of expansion, then you are always going to want to surround yourself with people who will elevate that space for you. That's just what you're going to want to do. So, um if if you are, again, being held to, if you're the person subjected to that, then these are some of the things that you can think about. Now, on the flip side of the coin, because isn't there always the flip side of the coin? On the flip side of the coin, we want to think about who are we holding to old mental models when they are beginning to demonstrate transformation, when they're beginning to demonstrate change, when they're telling you, I am not that person anymore. And they are showing you because, word has to match action. I don't know about anybody else, but I am an action girl, right? In NLP, there's a prime directive of the unconscious mind that says, there's a presupposition that says calibrate on behavior, right? So what that means is it's the word matching the behavior. And if you're seeing the word that's matching the behavior, if they're saying, I'm, I'm striving to be different, I'm doing things differently, I'm not that old person, and their behavior is consistent with that, where are you holding an old mental model that doesn't allow them to grow, that doesn't allow them to rise to the occasion? So, where there's heads, there's tails. And we have to also be looking at where we are holding old mental models for other people. And if we're doing so, what is the source of that? What is the unconscious source or the old trauma that has us to continue to hold others in an old mental model? And are you willing? If that person is clearly showing you, or that group of people for that matter is clearly showing you that they are doing the work to upgrade their conversations and upgrade their behaviors and upgrade their purpose and their actions, then what is it that has you continue to keep them in an old mental model? Because when we do that, it not only limits relationships, it can damage them. And you probably, if you have been on the receiving end of being held to an old mental model, can see and understand how that can limit and damage relationships. So understand that if you are the one is also holding someone to an old mental model, that can also be damaging and limiting to a relationship. And it stifles creativity, it stifles communication, it stifles um, intimacy. Because if a person feels like they can't be who they are without being held, without being pulled back into this old view of who they are, then they won't express themselves to you, right? And so we have to also look at where we're doing this as well. All right. So all of this that I'm talking about, when I talk about mental models, I'm talking about NLP. I'm talking about neuro-linguistic programming, how we use language, how we utilize our brains to empower ourselves, how we can shift from the inside out, how we utilize um, mental models, different mental maps and mental models to grow and expand in our communication interactions with other and empower ourselves and others. So, of course, if you are interested at all in knowing more about that, you can, if you're here on Instagram with me, click the link on my bio. It can tell you, it has links that'll tell you a little bit more about the training that I provide, the personal transformation coaching that I do in NLP and with hypnosis, as well as, there's a podcast you can listen to. And you can also listen to the TEDx talk that's there in my bio link. And so, but if you want to know more about the training, just click the link. You can learn more and you can schedule an interest call, training interest call. Similarly, if you are with me live on Facebook or on LinkedIn, you can reach out to me directly. And also there are links in my bio that you can click and go to my website, which is mindremappingacademy.com. All right. So we're looking forward to our next live. I will tell you from the podcast angle, we are taking a little bit of a summer break. I usually like to take a break between seasons. And so I'm cooking up something interesting and new. I might be coming out with a new podcast soon. Woo. And so stay tuned as I will, I'll come back and I'll be doing these lives, but the podcast will go on a little bit of a hiatus as I gear up for this new development that I'll continue to share with you. And again, if you're interested in having me speak at any of your organizations or interested in coming to one of the trainings, just reach out to me directly, or you can go to the website and schedule a call with me, and I'm happy to chat with you about whatever your needs are. All right. You all have a wonderful rest of the week, and I will see you on the next live broadcast. All right. Now